The first question is, and Rabbi Scheim, you're going to be the first person asked this, is organ and tissue donation allowed or permissible for the Jewish religion?
Yes. No, I guess I should say more.
This is good.
I would say that permitted is not a strong enough term. It is what we would call in our lingo a mitzvah. It is an obligation. It's wherever possible. It is mandatory because the saving of a life, or the enhancing of the quality of life, such as a cornea transplant, it takes precedence over virtually all other religious obligations. And even the holiest days of the year, which we are observing at this season, Yom Kippur last week, the Sabbath, they must be violated if and whenever a life or one's health is at risk. And it doesn't have to be limited to a life and death situation, but clearly saving of a life is of the highest order and can really allow us to violate or mandate that we violate virtually any other ritual commandment because of the necessity to do what we can do in any situation.
Great. Okay, Father Portelli, the same question. This feels like a quiz show, really. Is organ and tissue donation allowed or permissible in the Catholic denomination of Christianity?
Both allowed and permitted. Just echo the same sentiments as Reverend Rabbi there. There is really nothing that is greater than this altruism, this gift where you don't receive anything in return from the recipient. And I think that from the people that have expressed their personal testimony, I see that many of you are moved, and it really does speak to a truth within us that one of the greatest gifts we can give is the gift of life. And within our Catholic faith, there is nothing that prohibits that as long as the dignity of both the donor and the recipient are maintained.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Ali, can I ask if is organ and tissue donation allowed or permissible with the Islamic faith?
It's a little tough. There is no prohibition as such. There are, like this why we have to really work hard to convince people that there is one clear verse, that's the text that we have. It says that anyone who saves a life, it is as if you saved humanity. So we use that as this is why we have to do some work for it. But really, there isn't any clear cut. Like you don't read a text that says you can donate organs, and there is nothing to the contrary. But there are every evidence that we promote that says yes, it can. This is why we have to really launch a campaign for it, so that we can convince people about it. And this is why we came actually the reference for Muslims to come back and say, yes, we can. That's permissible.
Thank you. And Pastor Mathers, is organ and tissue donation allowed and or permissible for the Lutheran Church?
Oh, absolutely. There are some Protestant groups that do pick out different portions of Scripture and say, no, 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 you can't do it. But their perspective is that they're taking Scripture out of context and they're making it to say something it really doesn't say. The Bible, the Christian Bible, neither forbids nor commands organ donation, so it becomes a choice of the individual. And so we actively support organ donation, tissue donation within our denomination. We encourage people to ponder it and to make the choice prior to events in life that come upon them. So our faith informs our behaviors. So since our faith is neither for or against, we are definitely encourage that opportunity. So.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Doobay, is organ and tissue donation allowed or permissible in the Hindu faith?
It is perplexing to note that when the Vedas were written thousands and thousands of years ago, the Bible 2,000 years ago, and all the other texts, religious texts, there was no such thing about transplant in them, because there was no transplant at that time. But what is important is that one must do everything within one's power to save and also facilitate, like in Mohan's case, a person to live a better life. And in the Hindu religion, we feel this body is not you. But that's a different day, different time, because it takes me 10 days to explain that situation. This body is not you, you are something else. So we consider this body as a non-entity. But I can't tell this to everybody. I can't tell this to my own children. But because when we are attached to the body, we feel the body is ours. So in essence, there's no prohibition. But there's severe lack of education, especially in the Indian community. Indian community are very, very concerned about what they call maiming the body. And this is because they have not been educated to know. And I am not going to say that all of them are going to give their organs, but we need to go, not only in the Indian community, there are a lot of other communities, a lot of European communities which are reluctant to give also their organs. And we have to educate these people. Everyone knows that we must try to help a person. Today I was sitting with so many recipients. One 22 years heart recipient, young fellow there, over 6-7 years, I think heart recipient. It's heartwarming. I'm speaking with Dr. Grant, right? Dr. Grant just now telling me about pancreatic transplants, which I thought were not getting on very well. There's a young lady there who had a transplant for over 6 years, pancreatic transplant. So I think people need to be educated. All religion will agree that transplant is good. But what is sadly lacking? Education.
Thank you. Okay, so before the panel then discusses this a little bit further among themselves, if they feel a need to for this particular question, they can decide that themselves. I think it's pretty clear for the rest of us where these particular faiths and denominations stand. And that in itself gives us food for thought. It's overwhelmingly positively in favor of this kind of organ and tissue donation, and there are some situations where, as you say, it could be a tough decision, but there's a lack of prohibition, if not an actual giving it an okay. Not that surprising, since it wasn't really possible then. That's a kind of ethical problem we're dealing with all the time, an interpretation problem, for which education, I agree, is the answer.